At my daughter's wedding, that I paid for, the hotel staff stopped me at the entrance and said, "Your name isn't on the guest list." I stood there, in a tailored navy suit, tie trembling slightly in the breeze, holding the gift I spent weeks planning, an engraved locket with a photo of my daughter as a baby on one side, and her mother and me holding her on the other. I was proud, nervous, emotional, until the doorman shifted uncomfortably and said, "Sir, you're not on the list. I'm going to have to ask you to step aside." I laughed, thought it was some dumb mistake. Maybe a new planner, a last-minute switch. I showed him my ID. Still no. So I did the unthinkable. I called my ex-wife, Vanessa. She picked up after 5 rings, and her voice was cold, unapologetic. "Yes, that's right. This event is only for real family." At first, I didn't understand. I blinked. My stomach dropped. My hand shook slightly. Real family. What the hell did that mean? I stammered. "Vanessa, it's my daughter's wedding. I paid for the venue. I booked the band. What the hell are you?" She cut me off with a fake sweet tone that dripped poison. "Relax, Mark. We'll send you some leftovers." And then another voice chimed in, laughing like it was a joke. Her new husband, Tom. That sleazy, grinning, midlife crisis inhuman form idiot she married after our divorce. "Go home, pal," he said. "This is a family moment. Enjoy your evening, Mr. Sponsor." I could have shattered the phone. Instead, I handed the locket to the security guard and told him, "Give this to the bride, if you can." I turned and walked back to my car, every step heavier than the last. The lump in my throat wasn't sadness. Not yet. It was fury. The kind that simmers under your skin. The kind that waits. But fate works fast. 3 hours later, I was halfway through a bottle of bourbon when my phone rang again. Same number. I almost didn't answer. But I did. It wasn't Vanessa this time. It was my daughter, Emily, crying. "Dad, can you come back? Please." There was chaos in the background. Voices shouting. Music cut off. Plates breaking. Someone screamed. My voice was flat. "What happened?" Through sobs, she said the words that made me sit up straight. "He left. The wedding's off. Tom and Mom lied to everyone. Please just come." Suddenly, the evening spun in reverse. The insult, the betrayal, the humiliation, it didn't vanish. But it made sense. Vanessa had played her little game too far. And karma? Karma finally showed up in a tuxedo and wrecked her night. But this wasn't where the story began. Let me take you back 6 years earlier. To the first sign. To the first crack in the perfect mirror of our family life. Before Vanessa turned into someone I didn't recognize. Before she twisted the knife with a smile and kissed another man's neck while still wearing the ring I bought. Because the truth? You don't lose someone all at once. You lose them inch by inch. And sometimes, it starts with something as small as a missing smile at breakfast. Want to hear how I got from husband to ghost? Buckle up. This gets ugly. The first time I noticed something was off, it was a Tuesday. Vanessa came home late, again. Her hair was perfect, her makeup fresh, like she had just stepped out of a magazine shoot. I asked where she'd been, and she barely looked at me when she said, "Work drinks. You know, networking." I didn't say anything. Not right away. But her dress reeked of expensive cologne that wasn't mine. I remember sitting on the couch that night, pretending to watch TV while she scrolled through her phone, smiling at something I wasn't part of. That smile, it wasn't mine anymore. It hadn't been for a while. The next few weeks were more of the same. Business dinners. Late nights. Phone turned face down. Password changed. Then the whispers started. My buddy Jake, who worked near Vanessa's office, said he saw her once outside a steakhouse with a man who was definitely not her boss. Jake didn't want to believe it either, but he said the way she touched this guy's arm, too familiar, too intimate. I didn't want to believe it. I was still clinging to the version of her I married. The fun, sarcastic, clever woman who'd once danced barefoot in the rain with me after we lost power. But the woman in my house now? She was a shadow. Cold. Sharp-tongued. Distant. One night, I got curious. No, not curious. Paranoid. I waited until she was in the shower and checked her purse. And that's when I saw it. 2 hotel key cards. One with today's date on it. My heart didn't just sink. It ruptured. I drove to the hotel, hands shaking, head foggy, pulse pounding in my ears. I didn't know what I was going to do, what I was hoping to see. Maybe it was a mistake. Maybe it wasn't her room. It was hers. Room 814. I stood outside that door, hearing muffled laughter from inside. Male and female, the sound of a bottle popping open, and then a low moan that turned my stomach to acid. I didn't knock. I didn't burst in. I walked away. I couldn't face it. Not yet. Back home, she came in like nothing happened. Kicked off her heels, poured wine, called me babe, like she used to. I asked her straight-faced, "Where were you?" She didn't blink. "You already know. Late meeting with the investors." I nodded, then asked, "In room 814? That wiped the smirk off her face. She froze. Lips parted slightly. Eyes locked on mine like I'd just spoken in another language. And then, with the audacity only a pathological liar could summon, she said, "Why were you following me?" Not, "What do you mean?" Not, "That's not true." She knew. She didn't deny it. She redirected it. Twisted it. "You're insane," she hissed. "Sneaking around like some creep? No wonder I can't stand being around you anymore. You're suffocating." That was the moment the last thread snapped. It wasn't even the cheating that gutted me most. It was how little remorse she had. How she blamed me for the affair. Like I'd pushed her into someone else's arms. I didn't scream. Didn't throw anything. I walked into our bedroom, locked the door, and sat on the edge of the bed until sunrise. I felt like I was sitting beside a grave, our marriage buried, cold, and rotting. She didn't knock once. That morning, she left before I did. No goodbye. And when I came downstairs, she'd left her wedding ring on the kitchen counter, right next to a sticky note that said, "We both know this isn't working. Let's not pretend anymore." She didn't even sign her name. Just a smear of lipstick on the edge of the note. Let me tell you, there are many ways to say goodbye. Hers? That was a silent execution. I wish I could say that was the end. But betrayal doesn't end clean. It drags you through courtrooms, bank accounts, and worst of all, through your daughter's tears when she asks why mommy won't talk to daddy anymore. It only gets darker from here. The divorce dragged for over a year. Vanessa played every card in the book, claimed emotional neglect, accused me of being controlling, even hinted at aggression in front of the judge. Lies. All of it. But she wore them like pearls. Polished. Shiny. Fake. I tried to fight clean. Tried to protect Emily from the mess, from the poison. But kids aren't stupid. They see it. They feel it. I knew she noticed the way her mother rolled her eyes whenever I spoke, how she dismissed everything I did as if I was some embarrassing footnote in her glamorous new life. Tom showed up halfway through the trial. He didn't say much. He didn't have to. He just stood behind her like a golden retriever in a tailored suit. Flashy watch. Fake charm. The kind of guy who buys a Porsche before paying off child support to his first wife. And Vanessa? She beamed like she'd won the lottery. I guess, in a way, she thought she had. The court split everything. She got the house. I kept the cabin. Joint custody. But Vanessa was clever. She whispered things to Emily. Subtle digs. Little rewrites of history. Painting me as the absent one. The cold one. The one who never cared. I started seeing my daughter less. At first, it was missed weekends. Then, she's busy. Then radio silence. By the time she turned 21, we barely spoke more than twice a month. When I asked to take her to dinner for her birthday, Vanessa told me they already had plans. She's grown now, Mark. She makes her own choices, she said, sipping white wine like she hadn't orchestrated the whole disconnect. I wanted to scream, but I didn't. I just nodded, like a man too tired to argue with ghosts. The only thing that kept me sane was work. I buried myself in it. Late nights, new contracts, meetings, deals. I built something from nothing, again, quietly. And I never once asked Vanessa for anything. Years passed. I kept my distance. Until one spring morning, I got the invitation. Emily's wedding. My heart stopped when I opened it. Cream card stock, gold trim, her full name in cursive. Emily and Mackenzie. Not a single mention of me. No, daughter of Mark Mackenzie. Just beloved daughter of Vanessa and Thomas Caldwell. I stared at that line for a long time. Then I smiled. Because I knew. I wasn't just being excluded. I was being erased. But I still wired the money. Paid the balance on the venue. Settled the bill for the florist, the music, the catering. Quietly. Without a word. Because I wasn't doing it for Vanessa. I was doing it for the little girl who once called me her hero. The night before the wedding, I bought the locket. Engraved it. Wrapped it in blue tissue paper. I wrote a note. No matter what they say, I never stopped being your dad. I love you. Always have. Always will. I didn't expect a thank you. Didn't expect an invite to the rehearsal dinner. I just wanted her to know I tried. That I was there. But then came the wedding day. The doorman. The rejection. The cruelty, that smug voice on the phone, saying, "We'll send you leftovers." And I'd accepted it, swallowed it, turned away, until her call came in hours later, sobbing, panicked, broken. The wedding was off. The groom, David, found out something. Something he wasn't supposed to know. And everything unraveled. I didn't ask questions. Not yet. I just got in my car and drove back. Because if there was one thing Vanessa never learned, it's that you can push a man only so far before he stops walking away and starts watching everything you built collapse under the weight of your own lies. When I arrived, the scene looked like a battlefield dressed in tulle. Chairs knocked over. Flower petals trampled into the floor. A few guests outside smoking, whispering, some with their phones out pretending not to film. Inside the lobby, I saw Emily first. Mascara streaked down her cheeks. Her hands trembled as she clutched the edge of a chair. She looked up and froze when she saw me. For a second, we just stared at each other, like strangers who shared something unspoken but impossible to erase. "I'm sorry," she said, voice cracking. I stepped closer. "What happened?" She hesitated, glanced around like someone might be listening, then leaned in. "David found the messages." Those 4 words hit like a bullet. She didn't have to explain. I knew exactly what kind of messages she meant. Vanessa's fingerprints were all over it. That woman never knew when to stop, always so sure her web of lies would never be unraveled. I asked carefully, "Whose messages?" "Mom's." She sent them to David's cousin. Flirted, played around, tried to act like she was joking. But it wasn't a joke. They were bad. Then David's family found out she'd pressured him to exclude you from the guest list. Said it was the only way to avoid drama, that you'd ruin the moment. I laughed, quiet, bitter, and she still managed to ruin it herself. Emily nodded slowly. "He called it off this morning. Waited until right before the ceremony. Said he couldn't marry into that kind of family. That kind of family." The words hung in the air like smoke. Vanessa appeared then, walking toward us in her ridiculous pale pink dress like nothing had happened, still trying to play the poised matriarch. She saw me, flinched just slightly, then narrowed her eyes. "What are you doing here?" she hissed, stepping between me and our daughter. "I was invited," I said flatly. "Apparently, by fate." She sneered. "You think you're clever?" "No, just patient." She turned to Emily. "Sweetie, he's just trying to turn you against me. You're emotional right now." "Stop," Emily said, her voice suddenly sharper than I'd ever heard it. "Just stop, Mom." Vanessa's mouth opened, but Emily cut her off. "You lied to me for years. You said Dad didn't want to be around, that he bailed on everything. But I've seen the receipts. The florist, the venue, the food. He paid for all of it. Not Tom. Not you." Vanessa looked pale now, her poise cracking. I did what I had to do," she stammered. "No, you did what you wanted to do," Emily snapped. "And now everything's broken." People had stopped moving. Some guests were watching. A hotel manager stood awkwardly nearby. I could have stepped in, diffused it, but I didn't. I let Vanessa squirm. She turned to me one last time. "You think this makes you look like the hero? You think you've won something?" I didn't answer. I just looked at her the way you look at something that used to be beautiful but turned into a warning. Later that night, I sat with Emily in the hotel bar, both of us still in our formal clothes, eating leftover cake from a plastic plate. She finally asked the question I'd been waiting for. "Why didn't you tell me the truth years ago?" I looked at her carefully. "Because I wanted you to find it on your own, and because I still believed she might fix it." "I was wrong." Emily nodded, then reached into her purse and pulled out the locket. "I got it," she whispered. "Thank you." I didn't cry. Not then. But the knot in my chest loosened just enough to breathe. And in that silence, I realized, sometimes the greatest revenge is simply surviving long enough to watch the liar run out of lies. And sometimes, they trip on their own damn wedding aisle. The next morning, I checked out of the hotel before sunrise. Emily was asleep upstairs in one of the guest rooms, emotionally drained. Vanessa and Tom? Who knows? I wasn't interested in the aftermath of their mess. Let them clean up the wreckage they created. Driving away, I didn't feel triumphant. There was no satisfaction in watching a wedding fall apart. No joy in seeing my daughter's heart broken. But there was a strange peace. A quiet knowing that I hadn't imagined it all. That I wasn't the villain Vanessa had painted me to be for years. The truth had a way of clawing its way out eventually, and it finally had. I pulled off the highway at a rest stop. Stared at my reflection in the bathroom mirror. Gray streaks in my hair. New lines around my eyes. Tired, yes, but not broken. Not anymore. Back home, I poured myself coffee and stood by the window. Same view I'd had for years. Trees, a quiet street, the neighbor's dog barking at squirrels. But everything looked different now, like the static had cleared from the signal. A week later, Emily called. Not texted. Called. Can we have dinner? We met at a small Italian place near her old school. She wore a simple sweater, no makeup, hair tied up like when she was a teenager. She looked real, like the girl I remembered before Vanessa poisoned everything. Over pasta, she told me she was going to take time off work, reevaluate her life, maybe travel, maybe stay with me for a while. I've wasted years trying to please people who only cared about control, she said. I want to know who I am outside of all that. You'll figure it out, I said. You've got grit. You always did. She smiled. That old smile. The one I hadn't seen since she was 13 and baked a lopsided birthday cake just for me. Dad, she said softly. I'm sorry. I shook my head. Don't be. You were lied to. Manipulated. That's not your fault. But I believed it. I pushed you away. You were a kid, I said. Kids believe the parent who whispers the loudest. She reached across the table and squeezed my hand. I don't want to lose more time. Neither did I. That night, as we said goodbye, I handed her something. An old photo. The three of us, me, her, and Vanessa, at her 5th grade recital. Back when the smiles were still real. She held it for a long time. How do you move on from something like this? I answered without thinking. You don't move on. You move through it. And if you're lucky, you come out the other side stronger, wiser, and with less dead weight on your back. She laughed. That sounds like something Tom would call too poetic. Then it's probably true, I said. The days that followed were quiet, peaceful. Emily started stopping by more often. We took walks, talked about books, made new memories. And Vanessa? She called once. I didn't answer. She left a message, her voice sweet, like sugar hiding poison. I think we should talk. Maybe clear the air. For Emily's sake. I deleted it. She wasn't reaching out for closure. She was reaching out because she had lost. And people like her? They only look back when they have nothing left ahead of them. So no, I didn't need to talk. She already said everything I needed to hear the night. She told me to go home. We'll send you leftovers. That was the moment I stopped being her puppet and started rebuilding my life, one truth at a time. Weeks passed. Emily stayed true to her word. She started showing up regularly, sometimes with groceries, sometimes just with stories about work or awkward encounters with old friends asking about the wedding. I let her talk. I listened more than I spoke. That's what she needed. And honestly, that's what I needed too. One evening, we were sitting on the porch. Late autumn chill, mugs of tea in hand, trees bare, and the sky washed in fading gold. Do you ever miss her? She asked suddenly. It took me a second to answer. Not because I didn't know, but because I wanted to say it right. I miss the idea of her, I said. The person I thought she was. The version of her I built in my head during the good years. Emily nodded, thoughtful. I think I miss that too. She wasn't always like this, right? No. She used to laugh more. She used to care about people. And then something happened. Or maybe something was always broken, and I just ignored the cracks. She looked down at her tea. I feel guilty for hating her sometimes. You're allowed to feel whatever you feel, I told her. That's part of healing. You don't owe anyone forgiveness on a deadline. She smiled, barely. You're a better person than me. I laughed. I'm older. That's all. Later that night, I got a call from an unknown number. I never answer those, but this time I did. A man's voice came through. Calm. Slightly embarrassed. Hey, sorry to bother you. This is David, Emily's ex-fiancé. I stood up from the couch. What do you want? I'm not calling to stir anything up. I just wanted to say thank you. That threw me. For what? He sighed. For not interfering. For not poisoning her against me after the wedding. For, I don't know, being better than I probably would have been. I didn't know what to say. Then he added. Vanessa tried to spin the story. Said you sabotaged everything. But Emily told me everything eventually. She's strong. And she sees clearly now. I let that hang in the silence. It was strange, hearing that from a man who'd once planned to join that twisted family tree. Take care of yourself, David, I said, and hung up. The next day, Emily came over with a bag of old photo albums she'd taken from Vanessa's house. I want to go through these with you. I want to remember what was real and what wasn't. We sat for hours. Photos from birthdays, Christmas mornings, beach trips, school plays. Some of them I hadn't seen in over a decade. In some, Vanessa looked like someone I could have sworn I still knew. In others, I saw the coldness creeping in, the fake smile, the forced laugh. But Emily? She was always shining, even in the chaos. At one point, she pulled out a picture of her 5th birthday. She was on my shoulders, grinning like she'd conquered the world. "This one," she said. "This is the real stuff, isn't it?" "Yeah," I said. "That's the stuff they can't take from us." She leaned her head on my shoulder. "I'm sorry it took so long to come back." I didn't say anything, just kissed the top of her head. It wasn't about time. It was about truth. And sometimes, the truth takes the long road home. The last photo in the album was torn, a jagged edge where Vanessa's face had been ripped off. Emily smiled. "Accidentally dropped that one into the fireplace last week." I raised my mug in a silent toast. To letting go, to starting again, and to the quiet revenge of living better than the people who tried to break you. A month passed, then 2. The snow came early that year, and so did a sense of peace I hadn't felt in nearly a decade. Emily started staying over some weekends, cooking dinner with me, watching old movies we used to love, lighting a fire just because we could. Her laugh came back. Not forced, not bitter, just pure. We never spoke of Vanessa unless Emily brought her up. She didn't often, and when she did, it was usually brief. An update on how her mother was trying to save face in her social circles, or the latest new business Tom had failed to get off the ground. I didn't care to know the details. Their lives were becoming irrelevant. One night in December, I came home and found Emily sitting on the floor of the living room, surrounded by open mail. Her face was pale. Her hands were trembling slightly. "What's wrong?" I asked, closing the door behind me. She held up an envelope. Thick, cream-colored. No stamp. No return address. "I found this taped to the mailbox," she said. "It's from her." Vanessa's handwriting stared back at me, loopy and artificial, like everything else about her. I didn't want to open it, but Emily already had. "She's asking for help," she said. "Apparently, Tom left her. Took what was left of their savings. She has nothing." I sat down across from her. Took the letter. Read every word slowly. It was drenched in faux vulnerability. "I know I made mistakes," it said. "I miss our family. I'm still your mother. I'm scared. Please don't shut me out." There was no real apology. No ownership. Just a pitiful attempt to reel us back in now that her lifeboat had sunk. "She wants to stay with me," Emily whispered, "until she gets back on her feet." I looked at my daughter. Saw the war behind her eyes. The part of her that was kind, empathetic, still holding on to the myth of who her mother used to be. "You don't have to fix her," I said. Emily nodded. "I know, but I don't want to be like her, either." "Cool. Being kind doesn't mean being a doormat." She exhaled. "Can I stay here instead?" I smiled. "You never have to ask." She tore the letter in half. Then again, until it was nothing but confetti in the fireplace. We didn't say anything after that. Just watched it burn. Christmas came. The tree was small but real. The decorations were mismatched and full of old memories. Emily hung an ornament she made in 1st grade, a cracked snowman with one eye missing. I hung a wooden star she carved in high school shop class. We made dinner together, watched cheesy holiday movies, opened gifts wrapped in reused paper and inside jokes. And for the first time in a very, very long time, I realized something. I wasn't waiting for revenge anymore. I wasn't nursing old wounds or dreaming of payback. I had already won, not by destroying Vanessa, but by surviving her, by standing back up, by being here, present, whole, and loved, and by watching my daughter do the same. This was the part they never show in the stories. Not the betrayal, not the courtroom drama, not the ugly tears, but the rebuilding, the soft mornings, the laughter coming back, the moment you look in the mirror and see yourself again. If you're reading this, if you've been through something like it, here's what I'll tell you. You don't have to carry their poison forever. You don't have to drink from the cup they try to drown you in. Let them go. Let the fire consume the lies. And let yourself finally breathe. It was early spring when I got the final call. Not from Vanessa. Not from Tom. From a lawyer. Apparently, Vanessa had filed for bankruptcy. She listed debts I never knew existed. Maxed out cards, failed ventures, unpaid loans. The life she built on other people's money had finally collapsed, and now, she was grasping for whatever name she could pull down with her. "Mr. Mackenzie," the lawyer said, She named you as a reference and partial guarantor on a business lease. I laughed. Out loud. She forged it, I replied. The silence on the other end confirmed he'd already suspected as much. I didn't need to pursue it. Didn't need to sue. She had nothing left to take. No reputation, no friends, no empire. She was a ghost now. One of those shadows that tries to flicker back into your life just to remind you it once mattered. But she didn't matter anymore. That weekend, Emily and I took a trip to the cabin I kept after the divorce. The place was old, the roof creaked, and the heater wheezed like it was dying. But it was ours. No fake smiles. No edited history. We spent the evening cooking over a fire. She played music I didn't know, and I told stories from her childhood she'd half forgotten. When the stars came out, she sat next to me on the porch, knees pulled to her chest. "Do you ever regret it?" she asked. "Everything." I thought about that for a long moment. "No," I said. "Regret means you'd undo it all." I wouldn't. Because even through all the pain, I got you. And I found myself again. She leaned her head on my shoulder. "I'm glad you're not like her." I smiled. I used to wish I could be colder, that I could shut people out. But if I'd done that, you wouldn't be here beside me now. She nodded, eyes on the fireflies flickering beyond the trees. That night, I stood by the window while she slept in the next room. I watched the wind bend the branches, watched the moonlight stretch across the floorboards like it was painting something sacred. I wasn't angry anymore. Not at her. Not at the years I lost. Not even at myself. Because the truth? You can lose everything. Your name, your home, your daughter's trust, and still come back stronger. Still come back wiser. I'd been erased, mocked, betrayed, but I never stopped showing up. That's what makes the difference in the end. They tried to turn me into a ghost, but I learned how to haunt with grace. And now? Now I live in the light, where liars can't follow,